Hello everyone, I wanted to show you one of my versions of Ahsoka that I do for her makeup. First I glue down my eyebrows, just some regular plain old Elmer's glue and a glue stick. The purple works really good so you can see when it's dry. Now I'm not going for anything smooth, this is actually something I do beforehand so that it makes it easier for taking off my prosthetics that I use. So I'm just getting the glue all distributed through my brows, putting them down flat as best as I can, and I'm not really worried about them being smooth. Now I'm taking a wet Q-tip and I'm smoothing out the edges of where the glue was, just so that there's no lines for when I put on the orange. So just smoothing it down. Now I'm taking some concealer going over my eyebrows just in case they show where I'm using the prosthetics, but usually they don't. Usually the prosthetic goes completely over my eyebrow, but I do this just as a precaution. Now I'm going to use my Miron orange, and you get your brush wet. I have a little bowl that I dip mine in, and you just swirl it around into the paint. So I've added more water, and you make it into like a creamy base, and then you just swirl it all around. Try and get it as even as you can. A tip that I have for this is try and do your whole face as smooth as you can, because you really can't go back over it, because sometimes it will pull off the face paint that you've already put on. So just get your brush wet, swirl it around in there as best as you can, and try and get it as even as you can. Another tip I have is if you're not already in costume, make sure you wear a button-up shirt. That way it's easy to take back off and you don't have to pull it up over your head, therefore messing up your makeup. I get as close to around my eyes as I can, but I will be going in with a sponge to finish them up. I've wet my sponge and I'm just dipping it in the Miron orange, and then I'm just going around my eyes, getting as close as I can and trying to smooth it out as best as I can. Your eyelids you don't really need to do too heavily because you'll be putting eyeshadow on later. I do a patting motion as not to pull off any of the makeup that I've already laid down that is dried. Now my powder is just, you can use anything that's translucent. I'm going over and doing a patting motion, getting as much powder as I can on there to make the makeup look smooth, and that way it will absorb oil and sweat from throughout the day. Make sure to put a pretty good amount of powder on to do this. And then I'll just be going back over, smoothing it out, really getting that powder pressed on there. Now I'm going to use some shimmery blush, and I'm going to go ahead and put that on now before I put the prosthetics on. If you plan on doing any contouring, do it now before you use the prosthetics. I'm going to be doing my eye makeup, which I'm just going to take some white eyeliner. Ahsoka has pretty big eyes, so trying to make mine look bigger is what I'm going for. So I'll do my waterline with some white. I'm using the end of my makeup brush, that way it doesn't touch. I'm going to use some brown eyeshadow, but first I'm going to put a base down so that way it's easy to blend my eyeshadow. So I'm just using a light color. That way when I put my browns down, they'll be easily to blend. So I just use like a medium brown and a dark brown to do my eyeshadow, but really you could do your eye makeup however you prefer that looks best for your face shape. Alright, so I went ahead and did black eyeliner, some black mascara, and now I'm going to put on the prosthetics. So I'm dipping my Q-tip in water. And then I'm going to take my prosthetic and line it up of where I'm going to place it on my face. It has no glue on it at this point. I'm just using this to get a view of where I'm going to be putting my prosthetic. So now that I have an idea of where I want my prosthetic to sit on my face, I'm taking the wet end of my Q-tip and I'm going to be making what I call anchor points. So I'm just simply taking the wet Q-tip and just swiping off little anchor points for the prosthetic where my makeup was. You don't have to do the complete spot of where the prosthetic will lay. These anchor points are just really precautionary, especially if you're going to be in the heat all day and sweating. I'm just simply making points to add glue to later, just as kind of like insurance, just like it sounds, anchor points. Now that I know where my anchor points are going to be, I'm just going to use that wet Q-tip to take off a little bit more of the makeup. I really like to do these anchor points, especially on parts of the face where your face moves a lot, such as your eyebrows. Right there in the corner of your eye towards your nose is a very important spot to make sure that you do an anchor point, because the prosthetics tend to peel up right at that point because it moves a lot on your face. Alright, I went ahead and did the other side, same way. Now I have my pros-aide adhesive. I'm going to shake it up really good. And here's what I'm going to do first. I'm going to take a Q-tip, a clean one. I'm going to dip it in the pros-aide, and I'm going to put it on my prosthetic that's going to be attaching to my face. I'm going to dab a good layer on, and then I'm going to let it sit and dry a bit. Now I'm going to take my Q-tip with pros-aide on it, and I'm going to go to my anchor points on my face. I'm going to go ahead and put down a layer of pros-aide on the anchor points. Alright, my pros-aide is almost clear, so that means it's almost dry, which is fine for your anchor points. You can let it dry all the way. I'm going to go ahead and do my anchor points on the other side of my face as well. Now the pros-aide that I put down on my prosthetics, I went ahead and did the back of all of them. And it's sat long enough where it's got this nice creamy texture to it. so it's slightly dry but not dry all the way, just enough where you can spread it around real nice, more like a paste. So now that it's at this pasty consistency, I'm going to go ahead and apply my prosthetic to my face and my anchor points. So I'm going to try and just grab the edges and go ahead and position it where I would like it on my face. So the anchor points are going to help me with lining it up where I would like it to be. And the pros-aide is just creamy enough where if I make a mistake and don't get it exactly where I want it, I'm still able to slide it around on my skin and get it where I do want it. If you get any pros-aide anywhere else on your face, it dries clear, so you won't be able to see it later. The prosthetics are a bit squishy and stretchy, which I like about them, because everyone has different face shapes, so you are able to manipulate it some and contour it to where you would like it to sit. So once you have it lined up where you want it, just go ahead and pat it down. Make sure it's nicely secured as it dries. I'm going to go ahead and put on the diamond shapes. Line those up where I want them. Sometimes it's good to have a reference picture of Ahsoka ready so that you can look and see. But I've done this a few times, so I already know where I want the diamond shapes to be. I don't do anchor points on my cheeks just because I don't feel like it's needed, but you can do those if you'd like, if it helps you with lining them up. But I try and take the sharp pointy piece and line it up with the edge of my nose, and that way I know it falls into place where I want it. And with the consistency I left the pros-aide, you can slide it around a bit if you need to, if you don't get it exactly where you want it. I try and place them as close as I can to where Ahsoka's are, but everyone has a different face shape, so I really feel like you should place them where they look best on your face shape. Now right here on that corner edge, I feel like I didn't get enough pros-aide right there. And that's a spot that tends to come loose while you're wearing your prosthetics when you eat or chew. So I put a little extra there to reinforce it. So I'm using the edge of my nose to try and line these up as close as I can. And like I said, if you don't get them perfect, the pros-aide isn't completely dry, so it lets you slide them around a bit. Alright, so I'm letting them dry. Not making a lot of facial expressions while they dry helps. It usually doesn't take very long for pros-aide to dry. But now I'm going to take some baby powder, or you can use just plain white face powder, whatever you have, and a light fluffy brush. And I'm going to go over my prosthetics to take off that silicone shine that they have, so they have more of a matte, smooth finish. So just dust over very lightly your baby powder just to take away that shine that it has and make it more of a matte. Alright, I have a long drive ahead of me to Orlando, so I'm slapping on this wig for now instead of my headpiece. That way I can drive down to Orlando in comfort and still not look crazy. So I will be testing this out and seeing how long they last. This is the lipstick that I already have. I figure it's a close enough shade for Ahsoka. I'm just going to go ahead and put that on. Ahsoka has very nice, luscious, big lips, so I'm going to take a brush and outline my little skinny lips with the lipstick I already put on, try and make them look a little bit bigger. And there we go, all finished, ready to head out to Orlando on my long drive. Alright, I spent all day in the Florida heat and my prosthetics are still very secure. Wearing a mask, you can see that it, rubbed off some face paint. That's not really surprising, especially seeing as much as I was sweating. It was probably about 80 degrees today and sunny. But all in all, the makeup held up really well even for sweating. I'm quite a bit shiny. But that's to be expected, I'm oily anyway. But it did good. Aww. Bye.